All right, so imagine this. Okay, you're a company, and you're actually getting rewarded for promoting gender equality.
Not just like virtue signaling or like empty promises, but actually making some real progress.
Yeah, measurable, tangible progress.
Exactly. And that's precisely what is going on in Italy right now.
They have this new system called the Gender Equality Certification System, and it's a pretty big deal.
It is.
Because it's actually tied to their National Recovery and Resilience Plan, or what they call the NRRP.
Right. And for those who might not be familiar, the NRRP is essentially Italy's plan to, build back stronger after the pandemic.
It's funded by that massive EU recovery fund, right?
Yeah.
We're talking billions of euros here.
Billions, yeah. And it's all dedicated to completely overhauling and reshaping the Italian economy.
And what's super interesting is they've basically woven gender equality right into the very fabric of this plan.
It's not an afterthought.
It's not just oh yeah, we'll tack this on at the end. It's no, this is a core part of how they're going to rebuild.
It's a fundamental part of the plan. So, in today's deep dive,
we're going to be taking a deep dive into this gender equality certification system.
We're going to be looking at the nuts and bolts of how it works.
We're going to be talking about, why Italy chose this specific approach. What were they thinking? What was their logic behind this?
And perhaps most importantly, what are the lessons that we can all learn from it?
Whether we're talking about other countries,
other organizations,
other groups, whatever it might be.
Everyone.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot that we can take away from this. So
absolutely.
Let's unpack this. All right, let's start with the basics.
Okay, sure.
What exactly is this gender equality certification system?
Okay, so in a nutshell, it's basically a voluntary program for businesses.
Any size business.
Any size, yeah. It doesn't matter if you're a small mom and pop shop or a huge multinational corporation.
So it's not mandated. It's something that they choose to opt into.
Exactly. It's all about, opting in. And if a company decides that they want to participate in this, they basically go through this audit process.
Okay.
And they get evaluated really thoroughly on a pretty wide range of criteria.
Interesting. So what are we talking about here? What are some of the things that they're being evaluated on?
Well, you've got the usual suspects like equal pay,
of course,
work-life balance policies.
Makes sense.
They also look at measures to prevent gender-based violence, which is
very important, particularly in the workplace and all of these kind of environments.
Yes, exactly. And then they even go so far as to look at the representation of women in leadership roles.
Okay, so they're not just looking at entry-level positions. They're looking at the whole hierarchy of the organization.
They're looking at the entire pipeline, top to bottom.
Wow, so it covers a lot of ground.
It really does.
Now I'm curious, why these specific areas? Is there something particular about, the Italian context that led them to choose these specific things to focus on?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for example, Italy has historically struggled with a really significant gender pay gap.
Yeah, that's pretty common across many, many countries, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, it is. And so by including equal pay as a core criterion in this certification,
it's like they're tackling this problem head on.
They're forcing companies to confront it.
And to really think about, okay, are we actually paying our female employees fairly compared to our male employees?
And it's not just lip service. You actually have to show that you're making progress in this area.
I see. So it's not enough to just say, oh yeah, we believe in equal pay.
You have to demonstrate.
You have to actually have the numbers to back it up.
You got to show me the receipts.
I like that. I like that a lot. And what about the work-life balance thing? I mean, is that also tied to, something specific in the Italian context?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, women in Italy often bear a disproportionate burden of caregiving responsibilities.
Yeah, whether it's for children or elderly parents, it often falls on women to kind of manage all of that.
It does, and so that's why strong work-life balance policies are seen as absolutely crucial in this context.
It's about recognizing that people have lives outside of work, and that those lives need to be supported.
Absolutely, and that if you want to create a truly gender-equal workplace, you have to take those things into account.
Okay, so it's fascinating to see how they've really tailored this system to address some of the very specific challenges that exist within Italy.
It's very much context specific.
It's not just a generic one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Not at all.
So, okay, all of that makes sense. But, at the end of the day, companies are businesses.
They are.
And businesses care about their bottom line.
Profit, yeah.
So what's in it for them? Like what motivates a company to say, yeah, we want to go through this whole certification process? Like, what's the incentive?
Well, there are actually some pretty enticing incentives, I would say.
Okay, lay it on me.
So companies that achieve this certification can be eligible for like significant tax breaks.
Ooh, tax breaks. That gets people's attention.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking like small potatoes here. We're talking potentially reducing their tax burden by a noticeable percentage.
Okay, so that's real money.
It's real money, yeah. And then on top of that, they also get preferential access to public contracts.
Now that's interesting. Tell me more about that.
So basically, if the government is, putting out a contract for, let's say, building a new bridge or something like that,
Okay.
companies that have this gender equality certification, they're basically given like an advantage in the bidding process.
I see. So it's not like they're guaranteed to get the contract,
No.
but it's like they get bonus points added to their score or something like that.
Exactly. It's like they're starting off with a head start.
Interesting.
And that can be incredibly valuable, especially when you're talking about like these big, lucrative public contracts.
Makes sense because those contracts can be, millions, even billions of euros, right?
Oh, absolutely. So it's a real incentive for companies to get on board with this.
So it sounds like it's kind of a win-win situation here, right?
Yeah.
It's good for business.
Yeah.
And it's good for society as a whole because it's promoting gender equality.
Right. Everyone benefits.
Okay. But you know me. I always like to play devil's advocate here. So are there any potential downsides or concerns that we should be thinking about with this system?
Sure. I mean, like with any kind of initiative, there are always, potential challenges or downsides.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big concerns here is that, companies might pursue this certification just for the perks.
Yeah, just to get the tax breaks and the preferential access to contracts.
But without actually, genuinely changing their practices.
It's like, what do they call it? Greenwashing, right?
It's a form of greenwashing, yeah, where you're basically just trying to, look good on the surface.
But you're not actually, like, walking the walk.
Exactly. So that's why I think robust monitoring and evaluation are absolutely essential to make sure that the system is actually working as intended.
Okay, so you mentioned monitoring. Like, what would that look like in practice? What are we talking about here?
So ideally, you'd want to have a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
So you'd have companies, regularly reporting on their progress, showing, here's the data, here's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
But then you'd also want to have independent audits.
Like third-party audits.
Third-party audits, yeah, just to verify that what the companies are saying is actually accurate.
And maybe even some kind of mechanism for employees to report any discrepancies or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. You want to make sure that there's a way for people to, speak up if they see something that's not right.
Yeah, some kind of whistleblower protection or something.
Exactly, so that you can ensure that the system is truly fair and transparent.
That's interesting.
It's very important.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a moment here and kind of take a broader perspective.
Okay, sure.
What are some of the lessons that other countries and organizations can learn from Italy's experience?
Well, I think one of the really innovative things about Italy's approach is how it links economic recovery with social progress.
Yeah, it's not either or. It's like we can do both.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important lesson for other countries that are, trying to figure out how to rebuild in a post-pandemic world.
Absolutely.
I think other countries could definitely adapt this model, but it's crucial to tailor it to their own, unique circumstances.
It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution.
No, because what works in Italy might need adjustments to fit different cultures,
Different economic realities.
Different existing laws and regulations.
Yeah, you got to kind of adapt it to the specific context that you're working in.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really important point to keep in mind.
Okay, and then beyond just countries, right? Like, what about other organizations? I mean, do you think this is something that could be applied more broadly?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think universities, government agencies, even nonprofits.
All sorts of institutions.
Yeah, I mean, they could all implement similar systems to promote gender equality within their own organizations.
So it's not just limited to the corporate world.
Not at all. I think the principles behind this could be applied in all sorts of different settings.
So it's really about taking this idea and kind of, adapting it and tweaking it to fit the specific needs of whatever organization or whatever context you're working in.
Exactly. It's about finding ways to incentivize meaningful progress towards gender equality.
And to make it, not just something that people talk about, but something that they actually do.
It's about action, not just words.
So as we wrap up here, what's the big takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the big takeaway is that, Italy's gender equality certification system it's a bold experiment.
It is.
It's ambitious, and it has the potential to make a real impact.
And I think it's really forcing us all to ask ourselves some tough questions.
Right. Like, how can we incentivize meaningful progress towards gender equality in our own spheres of influence?
In our own workplaces, in our own communities, in our own lives, like, what can we do?
Exactly. And what kind of creative solutions can we come up with to really close the gap and create a more equitable world?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but I think Italy's experiment here is a really good starting point.
It's something to build on.
It's something to learn from, and I think there's a lot of potential there.
Absolutely.
So hopefully this has given our listeners some food for thought.
Definitely.
And some inspiration to maybe, try something new.
And to think outside the box.
Because we really can make a difference.
We can, we just have to be willing to try.
All right, well, on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.
See you then.